Lefties on X are melting down, and for once, I find myself in agreement with them. We'll explain. Blaze News The Mandate starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined by the consummate wordsmith, Professor Peterson. He's always fixing the words that I write.
Well, it's very kind, very kind. Very nice of everyone. Good to be here today on a happy Thursday. In many respects, at least there's some justice coming out today already, trickling out from the news cycle.
Yes, and let's bring in our intrepid explorer of the D.C. political swamp, Chris Bedford. How's it going today?
It's good. I'm excited to get to Dallas in a few weeks to join you guys with that nice studio lighting. It's going to take a while for me to get that Peterson tan, but I'm going to start working on it.
I love that Sarah has permanently banished you to the basement. Like, you used to be upstairs every single day. And I respect Sarah for this.
Banished. And not only that, but because she's in the same business, she just takes cords and goes to different rooms. My ring light, my microphone cord. It's every day is a new adventure.
It's an adventure right now. It's an adventure just in the news cycle that we're following every day. And today we're going to talk about how all the liberals, they're calling for the boycott of everything Disney following the termination of Jimmy Kimmel Live. And yes, we're here for it. We actually agree. So let's dive into this. Let's explain, because in Jimmy's Monday night monologue, he lied about the death of our friend, Charlie Kirk.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
So if you've been paying attention to the news cycle at all, you know that he has been canceled indefinitely, Matt. And at this point in time, we need things like this to start happening, because it's not cancel culture. It's actually accountability for what is happening.
Yeah, this is a signature moment for American media, and I just want the audience to know you did this. This is something that everyone watching can take credit for, because what's happening here has nothing to do with free speech. It has nothing to do with cancellation in the sense that, people are out there politically canceling someone. This is a decision made by affiliate networks who understand the moment, and they see and they hear everything that you are feeling right now when these jackasses say this sort of thing. So if we just bring up what Nexstar said, it's FS1 here. Nexstar is a big company, and at the beginning of this press release, it says Irving, Texas. I just want you all to know, just personally, last night, I went out with school children and some of my kids and parents, and we walked around the ponds where we live, in the neighborhood where we live, for Charlie. And people had flags. The kids said things that brought me to tears underneath my sunglasses. And I didn't even know where we were going. And we walked to the highway, and as they hung the flags over the highway and cars honked with signs for Charlie, I realized that in the picture that I was taking of the flag, I posted this on Twitter, is the Nexstar headquarters, which hours before had issued this very statement in which they said that Nexstar strongly objects to the recent comments made by Mr. Kimmel. His comments about the death of Mr. Kirk are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we are located. Those are the local communities, ladies and gentlemen, that all of you live in. This is an affiliate network, a business actually responding to its customers and doing the right thing.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at full screen 4, because we see all the Dems that are out there right now that are trying to boycott Disney. Let's bring that up. When we look at this, what the Democrats are out there saying: Disney, ABC just caved and pulled Jimmy Kimmel for political reasons. Nexstar, which owns the CW, 200 local ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox stations, they're all part of the same machine. Boycott Disney, boycott Nexstar, boycott their advertisers. And this goes on. It says boycott Disney, cancel Hulu. Don't let them get away with this. Bedford, it's out there, and it's like, okay, the leftists, we know that they love going out there. Glenn Beck was famously one of the very first people that they attacked and went after and tried to get him canceled. That clearly didn't work, but the Dems are still going, okay, Disney, they're not great. Get rid of them. You know what? This time, hey, we might actually agree on something.
This one of this there are a couple things that destroyed the liberal power here to actually bully people, bully these organizations, which, by the way, they did for years. I mean, I heard stories from conservative companies in Dallas, Texas, where partners were getting berated by junior staff through and Black Lives Matter Maoist style struggle sessions, where everyone was terrified of the new HR girl. The partners at major firms were saying that they were going to, quote, do the work. That fear is gone. No one's afraid of blue sky. President Trump got elected with the majority. People are looking around and saying, oh, we don't have to do this anymore. And there is a little bit of fiction to it in their rewriting, not unlike France after World War II, saying, hey, guys, by the way, we didn't like anything that was going on at all. Sometimes we acted like we did, but we actually secretly didn't. The resistance. A lot of these guys would rather just move on. They had taken a part of it. They're no longer afraid. And Elon Musk bought Twitter. No one's afraid of blue sky. One of the things that Twitter was able to so incredibly do is take small mobs of human leftists and scare the living bejesus out of these companies. Have you noticed that you can be on hold with an airline for like 10 hours, but if you tweet at them, you're going to get a response and a solution pretty quickly? Those people are like empowered like gods to be able to solve corporate problems that are being made public. So no one's afraid of blue sky anymore. The fever has broken, and these vile people are saying vile things. And here's another thing. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel's show, one, it hasn't been funny since Barack Obama's time in office, when he first got really emotional during the Tea Party. And ever since then, it was just clapter. This is a legacy program that's extremely expensive, that is not making them the money that they need to be making on it. And its days were numbered. Then when he goes out and just says something so vile, the local channels say, you know what, we're actually empowered here. This is something Brendan Carr at the FCC has been really working on, is empowering these local channels to say, do your viewers want this? And no, they don't. They don't want to see that garbage. This is a horrible moment. And just like, a lot of liberals wanted to say that, a lot of normal liberals say that you could get murdered for having your opinion and saying and speaking out. Well, apparently you're not allowed to cancel someone's show for saying vile things. And it wasn't just that, though. It was the audience pressure for sure. It was the corporate liberation for sure. But it's also just a dying business model. And these guys are so privileged and so confident that they deserve everything that's been given to them. They're so entitled that they feel like this is a free speech platform for them. No, it's a business, and you're bad at it.
Yeah, let's take a look at Jimmy Kimmel and his viewership. This is a graph from 2016 till present with Jimmy Kimmel, and he started out with 2.2 million viewers, and today it's at 1.5.
Guy. Yeah, there we go.
And we look at this, and it's just, the viewership is going down like crazy. Stephen Colbert, we know that he wasn't renewed. Guess what, guys? They told us that he was running a $40 million deficit. Well, Jimmy Kimmel, if you're a business owner, you're looking at this and you're saying, wait a minute, hold on. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to make that number go up, not go down. And guys, let's go ahead and take a look at Jimmy Kimmel on the COVID vaccine, because if you think it's bad about talking about somebody's death, well, Jimmy Kimmel had a different opinion back for the COVID vaccine. Take a look.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Oh, so you can just die if you didn't take the COVID vaccine, right? This is somebody that has numbers that have been dwindling for such a long time, Matt, that it's not surprising that, again, if you're a business, you're like, we're gonna take the eject button when we have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I want to there's a lot to say here in terms of, Charlie's murder and the crazy misinformation that he spread. We'll get to that in a second. Just the big picture here is, it didn't used to be normal for people on TV who are trying to sell a product and entertain all of America to alienate half the audience and think that was cool. Jimmy Kimmel is a jackass. He doesn't even have the talented background that someone like at least Colbert, was funny back in the day. Jimmy Kimmel is an absolute jackass. This guy came on and it was cool to just, crap on half your audience. That wasn't normal, right? The old late night greats never did that. I mean, even up until Jay Leno, no one was doing that. Jay Leno wasn't sitting there doing that. They made this normal to say, if you don't agree with my politics, it's not even about funny anymore. You should die if you don't get the vax. This insanity, has run its course. That's the good news here, and I think it's important to point out. That's the overall picture. But the reason this is important, what Kimmel said, the reason this is important is because so many people still believe. Let's get those poll numbers back up there. So many people still believe this. This is real misinformation about who murdered Charlie Kirk in broad daylight. You in our audience, you know, it's obvious, right? But if you live in this bubble, you still have a bunch of people who do not understand what just actually happened.
Yeah,
and
well,
he was willing to go out
41%
and
of
sell
Democrats believe that a Republican shot Charlie Kirk. And that information, Matt, just can't, I mean
like 41%, you think a Republican shot Charlie Kirk,
number.
and he's going to go out there and spout this nonsense on national TV. And guess what? This isn't about the FCC coming down. There are rules. If you are on the public airwaves, you've been given a right that other people haven't, and you have to be careful about that. So it's the perfect excuse, as Chris said, for these cowardly executives to say, well, wait a minute, this is going to anger half our audience in a serious way. We're already seeing pushback, and also this guy's ratings have been dwindling for a long time. And so it's a confluence of factors that leads to a little bit of justice, I think, today.
Bedford, jump in here.
And you know what makes him not funny there? Because you can make off-color jokes. You really can. When you're a comedian, you're allowed to make jokes about triage. You're supposed to take subjects that are typically off limits. But he believed it. He believed that people who are unvaccinated should go to the back of the line. He is so isolated in the bubble of their writers, which is something, by the way, that these companies need to be considering, that no one thought that this was a joke that wasn't worth making about Charlie, or not even a joke, but a statement. There was not a producer on that set who said, wait, that's not true. There was not a writer who said, well, hold on a second. That's not true. None of his friends even questioned that the shooter here was some kind of a right-wing guy, I guess. I don't know what kind of brain thing goes on in there. And it's the same thing with Colbert, unfortunately, who, yeah, he is more talented and he was funny once, but he's a doctrinaire leftist. I don't really know how to understand what he does in his mind to deal with his sincere Catholic faith, but also what is very clearly a lot of hate in his heart. It's a strange thing to watch it play out. And that's just across the board. And yeah, I don't really know what Jay Leno's politics are. I would guess he's Republican light, would be my guess. I saw him at a prominent Republican's funeral a few years ago. He's very tall, has big hair. You'd have no clue. And he's just shaking his head looking at this. Late night TV is supposed to be unwind time. It's supposed to be come together time. And it's just actually making me wonder, Matt, and Jill, is the reason that monoculture is dead simply because of the internet and because of streaming? Or is it because of the content? When something comes on that's huge, whether it's Super Bowl, Game of Thrones, or even sometimes that show about Yoda, Baby Yoda, there's kind of a monocultural moment. Everyone in the newsroom's talking about it, or the workplace when you come in, they've seen it. The girls have seen it. The guys have seen it. Everyone's waiting. You can do it. You just need good content. And this 1.5 million viewers, that's a successful YouTube video. That is not major network TV, and these guys need a reality call.
Yeah, I think that's well said. First, digital does fracture the audience, right? The end of, Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, these big series everyone talks about, it's still a fraction of people, between 10 and 15 million people watch the ends of those shows, and that's a big hit today. But back in the day when, you had Dallas on TV, that was 40, 50 million people.
Let's go to MASH, the finale of MASH.
You're talking 70, 80 million people. You're talking the country watching entertainment. We haven't done that for a long time, but your point is valid. They fractured it. They did this to themselves. And so they are getting what they deserve. And I just want to point out before I shut up here, the Sinclair statement is really important to me. This is another affiliate network, right, that rejected Kimmel. And what they say here is not just we're going to suspend him. I mean, they are going to air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk this Friday during Jimmy Kimmel's live time slot. They called upon him to issue a direct apology to the Kirk family and donate to Kirk and Turning Point. This is because of everyone in the audience. You guys are helping to do this. This is not something that we've seen before. We haven't seen this in a long time. And, I'm very curious. We'll be putting out more at Blaze about whatever this special is on Friday, because I'm curious how many people turn out to watch that. Is it going to be more than the 1.5 million that watched Jimmy Kimmel? It may be. Let's find out.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that the attack on free speech happened when they assassinated Charlie Kirk, not when Disney was going out there and canceling Jimmy Kimmel. Bedford, it's been great.
See you next week.
We'll see you next week. When we come back, the curious case of Cory Mills. It continues. Steve Baker will join us next. Well, a huge thank you for watching and listening to this show, because Blaze TV exists because people like you refuse to settle for all the crap that the legacy media tries to spin out every day. But this has never been about one voice or one company here. It's about a movement of people who refuse to sit on the sidelines, and we need to carry this mission forward. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a show, you're actually making sure that the truth has a platform for today and the next generation. So join Blaze TV today. Go to blazetv.com/BNT and get $20 off right now. It's as low as $8 a month for an annual plan, and you can be a part of shaping the future. It's blazetv.com/BNT. Yesterday, Cory Mills faced a defining moment in the House of Representatives. I know how big this story has gotten because so many of you have tagged me and everyone here in all of the posts. Representative Nancy Mace attempted to censure Ilhan Omar over these remarks.
Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist. And I think, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, than to completely pretend that his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so.
So how did it all go down? Well, Mills was one of 4 Republicans to join all Democrats, and that killed Mace's censure measure, which fell 1 vote short of passing. So let's go ahead and bring in Blaze investigative reporter Steve Baker. Steve, I'll let you have the first word on this one.
Well, the only rewriting of history was that clip right there. Let's just start with that. First of all, and I'm going to be as politic as I can possibly be, all right, which I'm not usually given to. And that is this, is that right now, if we're talking about Ilhan Omar, Representative Ilhan Omar, we're talking about somebody who is forcefully, regularly advocating a seditious conspiracy against this country. Let's just be completely honest about that. That's what this is. She is someone who is absolutely, now she doesn't always speak English in her press conferences, Sometimes she speaks in her native language, and we get those translations. And when she does, she advocates for the replacement of our Constitution by Sharia law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've all heard it. They teach it in the mosques. We're talking about Cory Mills, so we can talk about mosques, can't we? How's that for a segue?
Perfect. Cory Mills had his own censure to worry about. Axios put this up yesterday, that the Democrats are expected to withdraw their retaliatory censure against Mills, as it says, Axios reported earlier on Wednesday. So everybody's going, well, wait, why would Cory Mills join all of the Democrats and 3 other Republicans, Matt? Well, it's because he has problems of his own that you, as our editor-in-chief, and Steve and I here, we've had a lot. We've played a little hand in bringing those issues to the public.
Well, here I am sitting in between the two people who have done the work, as they say, on this story. And what's troubling about it is that he's online today saying this is a free speech issue, but it's very clear that they are withdrawing. The Democrats are withdrawing, censuring him. And in the statement they put out, in the censure, they list a lot of things that we have reported on here at Blaze, because we're an honest news agency. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you're saying you're MAGA and then you are corrupt as the day is long, we don't care. And so the stories we put out stand on their own, and you see very clearly here that he's getting something out of this. They're going to withdraw that. What's going on there? I understand that Congresswoman Mace is not happy. I can see that from her statements about this. And this is something that's obvious to the base. We really are done putting up with people who say the terrible things that Omar does, who doesn't seem to have a real loyalty to this country. And I say that very seriously. I don't throw those words around. What Steve is saying is correct. So you have to sit here and wonder, how is Cory Mills, okay, who has a raft of articles, a raft of scandals, everything from, claims of stolen valor to, recusing himself from the International Arms Company and receiving bags of money, all these things. I mean, we've reported on all of them. And it's been puzzling to me all along. If Cory Mills had come to us and just said, hey, here's the story, here's what's going on. He didn't do that. He rambled for 50 minutes. He yelled at our reporters. He's threatened us multiple times with lawsuits. This is a very troubled congressman. And this is only, the next chapter in that troubled situation that he's in. You see desperation here, guys.
Yeah, so we know that he's threatened not only Peter Giedel and others here at Blaze, right? Cease and desist. There have been numerous things that have gone on behind the scenes here at Blaze Media. Let's go ahead and look at full screen 11. This is what Nancy Mace put up on X today. Coming from a guy who turned off his comments on his social media, this is Rich, talking about that free speech that he was trying to advocate for. You voted to stifle free speech to debate this resolution by voting to the table. Massey didn't even vote to table it. So that's saying something. You've also threatened me over text last night. Maybe some personal reflection is in order. Until then, spare us. Now, Congressman Cory Mills has denied threatening Mace, but we know this from behind the scenes, Steve, with not just us, but you were at the very first hearing for the restraining order between Cory Mills and his former Florida girlfriend of over 3 years. And she's trying to get a restraining order because Cory Mills was threatening her and her just being able to move on with her life. So that restraining order hearing will pick up again next Friday, September 26th.
It doesn't matter what you think or whether you like Nancy Mace or not. What she revealed right here by saying that Cory Mills threatened her over text is completely believable because we've experienced that ourselves. Not only individuals sitting at this desk right here, but we've also experienced it with our other reporters. We've experienced it by what we've covered in the trials. We've seen threatening texts and other types of texts we haven't even been able to reveal yet for, we'll call it legal reasons, at least for now.
Yeah.
And there's much more of that coming out, including police reports that people don't even know exist yet. This is not an uncommon behavior outside of this guy's psychological profile.
Yeah, so there are more threats behind the scenes. There are women that we all know about behind the scenes that are still too scared to come forward because Cory is in a position of power and they have threatening texts. But they're, what do you do if you're a normal person? But Matt, when we look at this, it's just a mountain of evidence at this point. It seems like he is an unviable candidate right now for Florida 7th District.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say this very clearly. I don't take joy in, attacking Republicans or Democrats or anyone. But we have consistently reported a variety of things that permeate this guy's entire biography, okay? So every part of his biography, every part of his public career, we have serious questions, from why he was married in an Al-Qaeda mosque and the convoluted story which he tells about that he didn't convert to Islam, to what people say behind scenes about him, to all the women and the trouble there, to the money and the international arms company, and then the claims of stolen valor. I don't know where this ends, but at this point, the Republican Party has to think very seriously about why they would support him in another primary in Florida when the left is going to eat this up. If he runs, he is going to lose. I spent this morning, people from Florida calling me, and let me tell you, if he runs, he is going to lose. That's going to be an embarrassment in a +7 Republican district. So the Republican Party right now needs to wake the hell up and find someone else to run.
You touch on something very important, Matt, and that is this, is that we are looking at a situation here where we don't take joy in taking down a GOP congressman or anyone else in the administration or anybody that's known to be MAGA. But this being amplified yet again today, not by our efforts. This was Cory's fault. This was the congressman's fault himself by making the vote that he made, brought this back to everyone's attention, and thousands of new eyeballs and people are seeing this. But the important point here is that it doesn't matter anymore. Let this be a warning to anybody that's operating corruption on Capitol Hill or in this government. They're not going to be safe from us, at the very least.
Yeah. So if you are new here, this whole thing started October 3rd of last year. Cory Mills was on a helicopter ride with me. We were in Hurricane Helene trying to go volunteer and help people out. That's when Cory told me he was completely single. There was absolutely no one in his life, and he was very lonely. And it turns out that he was not only still married, he had the D.C. girlfriend that was living with him there, and then he had this Florida girlfriend that is now efforting to get a restraining order. Of course, all the women don't know about each other. So if you're just tuning in to the Cory story right now, go read my pinned tweet. Go read Steve Baker's tweets. Matt Peterson has some out there. But we have done a lot of work on this for many, many months, and it's now coming to light.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, the stuff with the women alone is very troubling. But you also have an international arms company and trips to foreign governments and talking to the president of Syria and driving through Hezbollah deserts without U.S. security. I mean, there's a lot here, folks, and there's more, right, that hasn't been reported. So again, I'm going to say this again: if the Republican Party thinks they can just run Cory Mills in the primary and not face a real problem when the left really goes nuts about this, they have another thing coming. And there's some obvious people who could run in that district. I mean, within that district, there's a guy named Dan Bongino. I mean, he lives within this district. I think Dan Bongino, no one questions his heart and his commitment, and no one questions his integrity. So there are people there who could run. Bongino could win tomorrow, and really take it to the deep state from another angle. But you can't run this guy, and we'll just keep publishing what we come up with as the truth. But I'm telling you right now, the other side is going to eat this guy's lunch.
And my reply to everybody on X, it's like, oh, why are you caring about this? I said, listen, you don't have to care about national security. I'll do that instead. Everybody here at this table will make sure that national security is actually a top priority for those who want to be in the House of Representatives. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll be chatting with one of our favorites, Mike Howell from the Oversight Project. We'll talk about what the FBI needs to do next. Well, we spend a lot of time talking about political figures, some more than others. We talk a lot about culture. We know there's a lot of craziness in this world, but this is different. If you're a woman or you have a woman in your life that you care about, listen up, because I'm going to tell you about Share the Arrows. It's happening October 11th right here in Dallas, and it's hosted by BlazeTV's own Allie Beth Stuckey, and it's built to encourage and equip and speak truth into women who are trying to stand firm in today's world. So if you've been craving real encouragement and biblical truth, then this is for you. If you're a dad or a husband or a brother, and you might have a woman in your life that maybe will benefit from this. Like, listen up, because this culture, it's pulling us in the wrong direction. We see signs of this every single day. This is a chance to reset and get grounded in the truth. All the tickets and details are at sharethearrows.com. That's sharethearrows.com. The Oversight Project is unleashing a new campaign to urge the FBI to declare transgender ideology, motivated violence, and extremism as domestic terrorism. Mike Howell is the president of the Oversight Project, and he joins us now. So, Mike, it's so good to see you again. It has been a crazy week that nobody wishes that we ever had to live through. But tell us what you guys are doing over there to try and stop this violence that we've now seen way too many times.
Yeah, it's a terrible and growing, sustained trend in American life right now. The transgender ideology inspired violence and extremism is now domestic terrorism. I think to best explain this, let's go back 10 years. When then candidate Trump was running for president, one of his chief criticisms of then President Obama was that Obama refused to say the words radical Islamic extremism. So Trump took him to task over and over again, and the more broad left for this, and basically was making the case that if you can't define the enemy, you cannot defeat the enemy. President Trump was right then, but now there's another enemy on the scene. And it's beyond obvious that transgender ideology is inspiring a very specific type of domestic terrorism. We're seeing it over and over again through the school shootings, through the assassination of Charlie Kirk, all across the board. My colleague Roger Severino has an estimate out there. 50% of school mass shootings over the last 10 years have come from transgender ideologically motivated individuals. These are people who believe that if you do not affirm their gender identity or whatever their delusions are, that you are harming them physically, that it is a violent event. Therefore, in their minds, their illogical and mentally ill minds, they can justify their own violence against others. That is a specific form of domestic terrorism that we're seeing emerge. And it is time for the government to diagnose this. And when they do it and they name it correctly and deploy the resources that come along with that designation, we can begin to map, to detect, to disrupt, and to dismantle this growing domestic terror threat. But up until then, if we keep the politically correct blinders on, like Director Kash Patel has on right now, then we're going to keep seeing this stuff happen. We've been calling on this for years. And I'm willing to say that had the FBI taken it seriously over the past few years, maybe some of these events would have been prevented. Maybe we wouldn't be playing catch up. Maybe people wouldn't be shocked to hear so much of the news coming out about the associations to the dark corners, the people involved, this furry gaming underground network, all this, because our government would have been on top of it. So they better get on top of it. And we're leading the charge and calling on the rest of Americans to tell our government, put the political correctness aside, and let's declare this and designate it a domestic terror threat. I'm sick of watching it progress.
Okay, Mike, you make a very important point and a brave one, apparently, in these days, because no one wants to call this out. It's clearly a trend that you have some of these people who are, transgender are very confused. They have committed acts of violence, and Charlie is actually the latest in a line of this. And you're right, if you can't name the enemy, you can't see it. But I want to give the FBI director his due and show you what he said the other day about this when he was trying to name what's going on. Let's roll that clip.
Maybe most importantly, under the counterterrorism and domestic terrorism umbrella, are nihilist, violent extremists, and those that label themselves 764, who wish to go online and convince children to maim and mutilate themselves and commit suicide. And we are producing record numbers of arrests under that umbrella organization. We even stopped an individual in the 764 network who wanted to conspire to kill an adolescent girl. He is now in custody.
So Mike Howell, respond to that. So this is the definition that he's putting out. Talk about that a little bit and why you think it falls short.
Yeah, it definitely falls short. It reads to me that the FBI, which still hasn't been reformed, put forth a much broader category to avoid the very narrow question here. And nihilism, as it's actually pronounced, is much different than what transgender ideology-inspired violence and extremism is all about. Nihilism is for nothing. It is people who have given up on life and morality. Transgender ideology actually believes in something. They believe that this world should be their version of it, and those who oppose their view should get out of the way and not be part of it. That is the ideology that manifests in the domestic terrorism. And so the FBI doesn't have the guts to say that directly. So they're going for this more politically correct, broad-based category. When you do that and you don't target this specific strand of domestic terrorism, you're not going to stop it. The FBI still has protocols in place that we discovered in the Oversight Project from the Biden administration, which put up barriers to actually identifying this threat that the FBI should remove. We've called on them to remove. They haven't. And it's because the far left, body of the FBI that's still there knew that there was this growing cancer in America, that it was emanating from this same ideology that is steeped in violence. And I think it's deeply disappointing that Director Patel, greeted with, even more transgender-inspired violence, isn't willing to do it even after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And instead, we're putting forth this just blob soup of a category that will not address the threat. I hope they change their minds.
Mike, I could ask you a dozen questions bouncing off of what we've just talked about right here. And I know we don't have time for a dozen or even three, but I do want to say this before I address one thing in particular. It is an absolute tragedy of tragedies that the assassination of Charlie Kirk was what actually pushed this particular initiative across the goal line from the administration. Andy Ngo, as you know, who is probably the world's expert on Antifa, has years and years ago told us that this was really Trantifa, that in fact the people in Antifa, which is essentially the paramilitary arm of the Democratic National Convention, is actually has such a large percentage of that group is gender confused, et cetera, furries, transitioning in all manner. But this is something that the FBI should have known about. Now, either the previous administration was just completely ignoring it or maybe promoting it, but Kash, Dan, and company have had months now with all of this information readily available to them to begin initiatives to punch this down. Why haven't they stepped forward at this point?
Yeah, I think fundamentally they don't control, enough of the FBI. They haven't reformed it. And so they have a apparatus that puts forth to them things that they know will stop what the objective is, which is this broad-based nihilism category. And they haven't declared Antifa. The president of the United States had to go out and do that. Antifa is separate but related. You can have many strands and types of domestic terrorism in a country at the same time. You described it pretty well. Of course, they have a large, transgender motivated population within it, but it's the distinctiveness of the transgender ideology, which is so steeped in violence and loaded up with gender bending hormones and increased rates of suicide, depression, psychosis. And there's also a step of self-harm that occurs definitionally when one becomes transgender. And as you know, if somebody is suicidal or in the camp of self-harm, the chances of harming others go through the roof. And so we need to treat this as a distinct issue that emanates in more violence. I mean, let's be honest. Transgender ideology-inspired domestic terrorism has killed way more people than Antifa has. I mean, Antifa's street violence, street thugs, they're evil, they are domestic terrorists, they need to be dealt with. But a much smaller and narrower population is this transgender ideology inspired violence and extremism. And I just don't think that they have the guts over the FBI to name it for what it is. They made the decision not to. It's not like this wasn't on the table of options for them. They chose to go with this blob category because they know that at the end of the day, they have a woke workforce that, has spent the last 4 years terrorizing people like you, Steve. And there's transgenders in the mix who have adopted the ideology. They've promoted the ideology of the FBI. And so maybe it's just too big of a lift for them to tell their agency to do what needs to be done and protect the homeland against this specific type of domestic terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe it's only been 2 weeks since we had, 2 kids killed in a church by Robin Westman. It's the same thing. It needs to be named. But I want to step back a minute and just talk about Kash in general. We published an article about, his greatest challenge, Steve, was going the manhunt for Charlie's killer. And there's been a number of things that have gone on in the past few months where there are people questioning Kash Patel and his leadership at the FBI.
The most difficult thing right now, I think, is seeing his desperation for a PR victory. And that has led far too often now in the last several weeks to him going to either Fox and Friends going to X and posting a tweet or some other venue, Axios, for instance, and releasing information that's just not ready to be released. And in fact, information that's just outside of the standard operating procedure of law enforcement. And that's what's getting Kash in trouble. And everybody asks, well, why is he doing that? Because from my sources, every time he does this, they rear up and I get bombarded with DMs from not just the whistleblowers, but from retired FBI agents, from people within the agency, and they're absolutely horrified that he maybe even, for instance, in this Charlie Kirk investigation with the killer there, may have even poisoned the jury pool by releasing the DNA information that they discovered. So the question is why does he do this? And my answer is just pretty simple. I mean, Kash Patel is not a cop. I mean, he wears a badge and he pulls his tight T-shirt, with his jeans and shows his badge hanging on his belt there, but he's not a cop. So he doesn't really know the standard operating procedures of how the Bureau and how law enforcement in general works.
Look, I want Kash Patel to succeed. I've always wanted him to succeed. But there are really troubling questions at this point about his leadership at the FBI. And, we owe it to ourselves and the MAGA Maha movement to ask those questions.
Well, Mike, we're running out of time, but I understand, people are out there going like, what can I do? How can I help? How can I get involved? Oversight Project has a petition right now. Tell everybody what they can go do to help.
Yeah. So look, I'm not a petition guy. I think we all get sick of things where you're asked to sign up and whatnot, but here is why in like one singular instance we want to do this is because it is a political will problem, one of political correctness. We need strength in numbers to show those in the administration, particularly at the FBI, that the American public is not only ready to come to terms with the reality of the interconnectedness of violence and the transgender ideology movement, but for the government to do something and to name it. And I think that can really get us to where we need to go. So please, throw your name on there, retweet it. I feel, shameful for even asking that. But at the end of the day, I think public opinion, strong and, very out there, is the only thing that changes the course of some missteps that have happened along the way. So we're trying to pull that card right now. We're coming out with a mock designation that the FBI can literally hit print and put in their systems and have it done tonight, along with everything that you'll need to kind of explain this and justify it. It's a very, unfortunately, easy thing to explain. It is domestic terrorism.
Yeah, go follow them on X at @itsyourgov. Very easy. We'll all repost it as well. Mike, thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Mike Howell was talking about Obama and the radical Islamic extremism. Well, we're going to talk about Barack Obama and get some of your replies next.
When I was president, in the aftermath of tragedies, when Dylan Roof went into a black church and, based on his own words, shot a group of folks who were engaged in Bible study and who had invited him in. And according to him, it was for racist reasons. As President of the United States, my response was not, who may have influenced this troubled young man to engage in that kind of violence, and now let me go after my political opponents and use that.
One, I thought Barack Obama was supposed to be known as a brilliant orator. Maybe we've lost a step here or two. It's not Joe Biden level, but that's not the Barack Obama that we all know. But the more important question is, I'm sorry, he's not political? Guys, we all know. So I wrote on X, that's one way to rewrite history. What's the biggest thing that Obama did to go after his political opponents? Let's get to the replies. Adrian starts us off, says the IRS going after the Tea Party group registrations and entity creation, disrupting any 501c3, 501c4 designations. That is the top of the list. That when I wrote that question, oh, I'm sorry, you want to be a Tea Party organization? Not under Barack Obama and his administration.
It pains me to see the man lie like this. And like you said, he's losing a step. But the first thing that's going to come to any conservative's mind is, oh yeah, remember when the IRS was weaponized? And that's exactly what happened. We have the receipts on that. We know what they did. They targeted right-leaning groups. And that's just the start of a very long list.
And we talk about Russiagate all the time here. Like, right, all of the shows that we've been doing here on The Mandate are all from the Obama administration weaponizing the federal government against people. Let's go ahead and get to Roy, who replied that we should ask James Rosen for his opinion, or maybe Cheryl Atkinson has some thoughts about her hacked computer from 2013. That is a good blast from the past. And I remember Cheryl saying, oh, I was typing on my computer. It was right there live. And she recorded it with her phone because if she didn't, no one would believe her. Like, no. People aren't hacking into your computer because you're writing bad things about the administration. They would never do that.
You know, I'm sorry. It might be just the anger rising in me after a week after Charlie's murder. But when I hear these thoughts, I mean, if you're on the left out there and you think that Trump is a fascist, you should get on your knees and pray every single night that Donald J. Trump doesn't just decide to do the same things Obama did, which was to spy on and go after journalists, among many others. You better pray that Donald J. Trump doesn't decide to do the same thing Obama did, which is have the entire FBI looking for political opponents to persecute, which is what they did with the right-leaning extremist groups thing that they've pulled off very successfully since then. I mean, you better pray that Trump doesn't do what Obama did.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to TC, who wrote that if I can recall, going after his political opposition was SOP, the core of his political framework, which is on brand for cultural Marxism like Obama. So in context, he's honest. He didn't actually wait for crisis aftermath. And I think that explains a ton right there. Like Barack Obama he's not waiting for your crisis to go to waste. That was Rahm Emanuel. Barack Obama is just like, it's another day. Let's go ahead and implement our values. And they don't need to have all of these emails, even though we're finding some of them. Yes. It's almost an unwritten rule on the leftists. They all know what needs to be done inherently.
Yes. And so this goes to the difference in rhetoric between Obama and, President Trump. Obama was great for a while on the outward, right? Some presidents, some politicians, they tell you all kinds of great things. They conceal what they actually do behind closed doors and what they actually order. Obama is ordering the deep state to go after President Trump as he comes into office. He's undermining him in every way, using the power that he has. But in public, he's going to say another thing. What I like about Trump is you get what you see. He tells you what he thinks. And that's the difference. And I think when you see Obama stumbling and bumbling up there and then just bald-faced lying about what he did, we're done with that. We're done with that. We prefer the guy who just tells us straight.
You remember the Obama beer summit, right? Could you imagine if Donald Trump right now tried to bring in some of the leftists and like, let's have a beer together. I know he doesn't drink, but let's have a beer together. Let's hang out. Do you think the leftists are going to be like, oh, yes, of course, we'll come in? No, they're calling Donald Trump a fascist. And this is the political climate that we have because Barack Obama made it that way. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.